Good morning. It's great to have everybody with us this morning. It's great to be here this morning. Thank you for worshiping with us, for joining in that with us. I want to look at Naaman this morning and the story there in 2 Kings chapter 5. And I encourage you to turn there because we're going to walk through that story with Naaman. And at a certain point, we're going to put ourselves into the story and think, well, if I was there, what would I have been thinking and feeling? What would this be like? So, with all of that having been said, a lot of times we go to the story of Naaman to think about how obedience is necessary, and we're going to see that this morning. There's something deeper that led to his obedience, and I want to ferret that out this morning. I want to pull that out and dig deeply into everything that's going on here. All right, 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. The setup is that Naaman is the commander of the Syrian army. These Syrians, live in a place north of Israel, and they frequently come down and raid Israel. And raid means make war on. Raid means these are small skirmishes, small battles that just attack one city at a time, that attack outlying places and weaken the nation little bit by little bit. And so this would have been a scourge. This would have been just a fear. Every Israelite is walking around, especially in the northern kingdom, walking around thinking, are we next? And we see here that several slaves have been taken. I say several. There's a slave girl that is serving Naaman's wife, and she's been taken from the nation of Israel. And so that's part of the setup as well here. And it says, and if you have one of the versions that capitalizes the word Lord or God when it's actually the name of God, Yahweh there, pay special attention to that in this story because we're dealing with people outside of the nation of Israel. And so when it references Yahweh outside of Israel, you have to understand their mindset is I'm talking about the God that's not from our land. He's the God of a different nation, the God of the Israelites, not the God of the Syrians. So very important, very poignant here as we use God's name in this passage. And so to that point in verse 1, it says that Naaman is a great man with his master, which would be the king of Syria, and in high favor because by him Yahweh had given victory to Syria. Now, most of the time in the Old Testament narrative, we read along as God gives Israel victory over their enemies. And I think subconsciously I usually identify with the Israelites because I want to be one of God's people, and so I want God to give his people victory. And so when he gives Israel victory, in my mind I'm thinking, yeah, go team us. But this is the opposite. God gave the Syrians victory. And of course he had a purpose for that. He was punishing the Israelites. It goes a step further here and says God gave the Syrians victory through Naaman. And that he was a mighty man of valor, but he had this incurable disease, one of a number of diseases that they called leprosy in the Old Testament. It's a death sentence. This is a terminal illness. And he's contracted this disease, and he knows at this point there's no hope for him. He will have to forfeit his position as commander of the army. All his success will go away. He won't be able to serve as master, the king. His life will be cut short, and probably in a very, very painful way as this disease eats itself further and further into the fibers of his body. It's just a matter of what will it attack next as far as where the pain will be. So this is a difficult situation. And his servant girl from Israel has a relationship with her master and mistress to say, I wish he could be healed. First of all, that's an amazing outlook for a young girl who's been captured, taken away to another family, another place, forced to serve. But she wanted good for him. And the good that she wants for him is that he could possibly be with the prophet that she knows about from back home, because she knows that prophet could heal him of this incurable disease. This prophet can work a miracle. All right. And so what I want to point out here in this is that Naaman has a need. And then he sees hope for that need to be met. Naaman has a need. At this point in the narrative, he does not see his need to serve the God of Israel. He does not see his need to have a relationship with the Creator or to sacrifice to the God of Israel. But he does have a need. He needs to be cured of his leprosy. And there's hope for that in Israel. So, in verses 4 through 7, and what I've done here is just pulled out some of the passage range, but I put the range like of the part of the story that we're talking about right now at the top of that panel that has the passage in it. So that will help you follow along a little bit. So in these verses 4 through 7, we have the king saying, okay, I will write a letter, I will pave the way, you're going to a different nation and you're an enemy commander, I will go ahead and do my part. I'm going to go ahead and go above and beyond for you, Naaman, commander of my army, because I really, really appreciate you and the value you bring. And I like you a lot. So I'm going to write a letter to the king of Israel, and you and go to him first and go from there. So he writes a letter. And he doesn't just write a letter, he takes with him some treasure. 10 talents of silver, and there's always a little variation in how much we think a talent was. Some of the translations, several of the translations who have this in like our terms, say that that's about 750 pounds of silver, which would be worth about $61,177 as of earlier this week. And then it's about, let's see here, the 6,000 shekels of gold is roughly about 150 pounds of gold, which is about $727,000. So this is a kingly gift from one nation to another nation. And then, of course, the 10 changes of clothing. So Naaman goes with gifts, with a letter of authority, with a letter of kind of ambassadorship for him. And he takes that letter. There we go. He brings the letter to the king of Israel. And the letter reads like this. When this reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy. Isn't that nice? And now we have to put ourselves in a different set of shoes, the shoes of the king of Israel, who knows nothing of the backstory. This is out of the blue. One day Naaman shows up, and since he was a leper, I figured out maybe his servant brought this letter into the king. The king opens a letter and he says, wait, what? I'm supposed to cure this dude of his leprosy? Am I God? What does he expect? Obviously, he's trying to pick a fight. He's asking me to do something impossible for me to do so that he can then make war with me when I don't come through on this request. So the king of Israel is upset. The point I want to draw out here is Naaman went the distance. He brought the matter before his master. His master paves the way for this to happen. And he goes, he delivers the letter, he takes a gift, and all of this, he is going the distance. We cannot fault Naaman for not seeking diligently enough. He is seeking. He heard there might be a cure in the land of Israel, and he is trying to find it. Verses 8 through 12. Don't read that yet. I know you're reading it. First of all, when the king of Israel hears that he wants him to cure him of his leprosy, he says, no way, that's just, and he tears his garments, a sign of mourning, because he figures this king is about to attack him, and he doesn't have a good answer for that. He knows that they're probably a superior army at this point in history. And so then the prophet Elisha hears about this, and he sends a message, and he says, have him come to me. Let me pull that part out of the text here. Sometimes the actual words are powerful. He says, let him come now to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel. And maybe initially we're thinking, well, Naaman is wanting to be famous. Elisha's wanting to be famous. He wants, the emphasis is on the prophet. But is it really, or is it that the emphasis is on God, and that anything the prophet does gives glory to the one that he prophesies for? And that's obviously what we should focus on there. Send him to me. All right, so Elisha. So Naaman goes to Elisha's house, the whole cavalcade. He's got soldiers with him. He's got people to help him. They all go to Elisha's house. And Elisha does not come out and talk to him. Elisha does not come out and do anything. He sends a messenger out the door. They're at his house, but he doesn't even come out. He just sends the messenger out the door, and the messenger says, what you need to do is go dip 7 times in the Jordan River, and you will be clean. Remember that phrase, because it's going to be given a description later. This phrase is going to be given a description. Go dip 7 times in the Jordan, and you will be made clean. Well, Naaman's reaction is on the screen. Now you may look at the screen. But Naaman became furious, very angry, and went away. His feeling is anger. His action is to walk away. That's like synonymous with rejection, isn't it? He's just walking away. Forget it. And he says, indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of Yahweh his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. To say the least, Naaman had a different expectation about what would happen, right? And his expectations have been disappointed. They've not been realized. So he's not even important enough for the prophet to come out. The prophet doesn't make this big show. And it doesn't go like Naaman thought it would. And he walks away. I don't know why Naaman had the reaction he did. I could sit here and say, well, maybe it was pride. Well, maybe it was anger. Well, maybe it was that Naaman was a type of person who was used to grandiose doings of the king, and he thought this would be a lot more of a showy, grandiose kind of healing. But what I can do for sure is I can put myself in the text, and this is what I want you to do with me this morning. Put yourself in Naaman's shoes. If you needed to be healed and you couldn't be healed the way you expected to be, if you were in front of the prophet's house and he wouldn't come out and talk to you, but he just sent a messenger and says, go dip in this muddy Jordan River. Go do something that you think is disgusting, that you don't understand how it's going to work, and that you can think of a better way to do it. Put yourself in those shoes and ask yourself, if I were Naaman, why would I refuse to dip in the Jordan River 7 times? Think to yourself, what would stop me from following through with what I've just been told to do? Maybe it's too simple. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe he just feels like it's inadequate just to not even meet the prophet, and then he walks away. Maybe he's going to get his autograph. I'm kidding. But at least come out and meet him, right? And he's going to walk away and dip in the river and go back home, and the king's going to say, all his friends are going to ask him, how did it go? And he's going to say, well, I didn't really see the prophet. Actually, the king didn't know what to do, and I didn't see the prophet, but I was told to dip in this muddy water, and somehow I didn't get any leeches, and I was healed of my leprosy. That's not a dinner party story. Maybe, I don't know what is keeping him from doing these things, but I know a lot of times I have to control the situation. Any of you out there have to control the situation a little bit more? Sometimes we have to understand the situation. Sometimes that's our hang up. I don't get it. How is this going to work? I'm better than this. This is not engaging for me. This is not really what how I wish this would happen. The place where I'm already at is better. Remember, the rivers of the Farfar and the Arnon, we didn't read that part. Are they not superior to any water that's in anywhere in Israel? Maybe they were mountain streams that were clear and beautiful, maybe bigger, I don't know. If I'm going to be clean, why would I wash in muddy water? That doesn't make any sense. Where I'm already at is better. The things I already have available to me back home, what I'm familiar with, what I'm comfortable with, that's better. I don't know what Naaman thought exactly, but I know that God asked him to do something that didn't make sense to him. God asked him to do something he didn't understand. God asked him to do something that was beneath him. God asked him that so that he could be loyal to God. That requires him to trust God, doesn't it? I'm going to get ahead of myself if I don't watch it. Oh, let's focus on this. So outrage with unmet expectations, and he's going to be forced to trust God. That's it. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 13. The description is given to the phrase. He's been told, go dip 7 times in the Jordan River. And he's been told, that will make you clean. And he's outraged, right? He doesn't want to do it. He's unwilling to do it. He's not ready to die to self. That would be an application for us. But his servants come and they say, my Father. My Father. So they're entreating him. They're drawing on the closeness that they have. It is a great word that the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? Has he actually said, wash and be clean? If you're following along, this is the ESV. Has he actually said, this is the greatness of the word. You have the opportunity to be cleansed. You have the opportunity to get what you came down here for. This is an awesome word. This is an amazing opportunity. Don't get distracted on it not being like you expected, like you wanted, beneath you. You don't understand it. Forget all that stuff. You've got the opportunity to get what you came here for. This is a great word. And so Naaman is able to refocus on his purpose, his mission, his opportunity. He has an attitude reversal. Instead of being outraged, now he can be excited at the opportunity. He's having transformation in his heart. This is the most beautiful part of the story. This is it. He does obey. This transformation empowers the obedience. He now has faith. He now has trust. He now has willingness to follow God and just do what he told him to. I'm not really going to obey God with all of my heart, mind, and soul until I have a desire because I trust him. This is a story of faith, not just obedience, not mere obedience. This is a story of a change of heart. That's what the story of Naaman is about. Is obedience necessary? Absolutely. And it's necessitated by the change of heart, by the faith, by his desire to follow what he's been told to do. The opportunity that's there motivates him to change his heart. And these servants that he had have given him the good news that he could be healed. So there he is, dipping into the Jordan River, starting with leprosy and coming up clean. And he has this newfound faith. He went down, verse 14 says, and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan according to the word of the man of God. He obeyed what he was told according to the word. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. You know what word I would have put there at the end if I was writing this passage? He was healed. I would focus on the fact that he doesn't have the disease anymore. God focuses on the fact that something larger has happened. He's not unclean, he's clean, acceptable, presentable to his fellow man, and with his faith, presentable to his God who created him. Israel had a special relationship with God, but God seeks out every person everywhere in every period of time throughout history and the present to follow him. And that's what he's doing with Naaman. He wasn't willing to die to self before. He was outraged. Now he's willing to die to what he wants and do what he's been asked to. So we see this faith and this trust. He acts according to the word of the man of God. The story is not over. It doesn't stop there. He urges the prophet to receive a gift. He says there in beginning in verse 15, he comes and stands before the man of God. He says, "Behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel." And he urges him to accept this present. Not a small present, if you remember. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gold and silver, 10 changes of clothes. A gift for a king. And Elisha says, "I don't need that stuff. Take it back home. I'm good. I have God. I don't need your riches." Elisha says, "Nah." Pretty sure that's a Hebrew word. Nah. Naaman has come to realize a great truth. There is no God in all the earth. He doesn't add Yahweh to some kind of pantheon of gods that he knows about from around the world. He doesn't even put him above the gods that he knows and worships in Syria. He says there is no other God except Yahweh, the great I am. And the gift is not whoa, that's not supposed to change yet. Whew, don't look at that one yet. But he has another piece here. He has a request. And you may see donkeys in the picture on the right. Those donkeys have dirt in their baskets because Naaman wanted 2 mule loads of earth. Mule loads, donkey loads, mule loads it says. Because he is unwilling to worship any God but Yahweh, and he is going to take this dirt from this land of Israel back home and sacrifice only to Yahweh for the rest of his entire life. Think of how anti-cultural that is of Naaman. Think of how crazy that is. He's like doing his own little religious thing different from anybody else anywhere around him in his nation. Why would he have the courage, the conviction, the desire? Why would he even want to do that? He's been cleansed. He's been healed. And he knows there is no other God. There's only one reaction that his faith can allow. and that is to worship the one true God. Total allegiance to Yahweh. This is a fun piece of the story. He says all of this stuff to the prophet, and then he tells the man of God, I'm going to need a pardon from Yahweh. I'm going to have to go in with my master the king when he worships in the house of the god of Ramon. And we're going to go in, and he puts his hand up on my shoulder, and for him to bow down to his god of Ramon, I have to bow down because I'm supporting his hand. So I just ask your forgiveness. My heart's not in it. I'm only worshiping Yahweh, but I have to go with my Lord the King and do this thing with him. And the prophet says, go in peace. He seems to accept that. So to summarize, muddy water and Naaman, we have a process. First of all, Naaman was aware of a need, and I'm going to point out it wasn't even his true need. Do people ever come to Jesus? Did you come to Jesus because maybe something else brought you to realize that you need God and his healing power? God brings all of us in very different ways. We all have different paths. This was Naaman's path. He had leprosy. He didn't care about what God to serve. But God showed him that it was everything. He went the distance to pursue help. He experienced disappointment and outrage. There was a moment of failure in his seeking, wasn't there? But he was able to become refocused and have a reversal of his attitude. He realigned his actions and, more importantly, his thought process with his original need. And he ended up trusting Yahweh, and we call that faith. He had faith in Yahweh and did what he said. That's obedience and faith all rolled up into one. And then he had surrender. When he saw God's power, Naaman recognized that Yahweh was the only true God in all the world, and that he needed to follow him with all of his heart. And there's an even simpler way to remember these concepts. We could condense it down into 3 steps that Jesus modeled for us. Naaman had to die to self and to sin. He had to die to what he wanted to. He had to die to his objections to doing what God asked him to do. He had to be united with God's will in obedience. And then we see him being this huge example of living out his new faith back in his homeland, taking those mule loads of dirt back and sacrificing only to Yahweh. This obviously has a lot to do, a lot of application to us. We have to die to self and to sin. We have to be united with Jesus Christ, buried with him in the waters of baptism, and then live that faith out. And that doesn't stop when we're united with Christ and become Christians. It continues our whole entire lives. There's always more to die to. There are always more things that I need to be having an attitude reversal on and being united with the mind of Christ in, and then living those things out. If you're here this morning and you know that your life is not right with God, pray to him. Have that attitude reversal. Die to what it is that you need to die to. And then live your life for God. And if there's anything that we can do to help, we'd love to do so. If you want to, come forward as we stand and sing.